Under the trees she challenged him, and the Lakota changed the meaning of power. The early morning sun filtered softly through the tall trees, casting long golden streaks across the forest floor. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the faint smell of pine and earth. Birds chirped in the distance, creating a delicate symphony that seemed to make time slow down. Elena walked carefully along a narrow path, her boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. Every step she took felt purposeful yet hesitant. She was a young woman from the city, used to crowded streets and constant noise, but here in the forest, everything was quiet in a way that made her heart beat faster with anticipation. She had come to the reservation to study the Lakota people, hoping to learn about their culture, traditions, and the way they connected with the land. Elena had read books, watched documentaries, and spoken to a few anthropologists, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of stepping onto this land, where stories felt alive and history was not just remembered, but lived every day. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes and letting the cool air fill her lungs. There was a strange mixture of nervousness and excitement bubbling inside her. She was here to observe, to learn, but also to question, to understand more deeply the meaning of strength and leadership in a culture so different from her own. Ahead, through the trees, she spotted a small clearing. Smoke curled up gently from a fire in the center, its scent mingling with the natural aroma of the forest. Around it, a few people were moving gracefully, preparing for a gathering of some kind. Their movements were confident yet unhurried, deliberate yet harmonious. She noticed the way they worked together, communicating without words, understanding each other through gestures, glances, and subtle nods. It was a language she could not fully grasp, yet she felt drawn to it, fascinated by the quiet power that seemed to exist in their teamwork. Standing slightly apart from the group was a man who immediately caught her attention. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that seemed to carry the weight of experience and wisdom. His movements were calm, assured, and every person around him seemed to respond to his presence with respect. Elena felt a twinge of curiosity. This man, she realized, was a leader, not just in name, but in the way people naturally followed him, in the way he held himself, and in the way his energy seemed to command attention without demanding it. She learned later that his name was Tom, a respected tribal elder and storyteller, someone who had lived through decades of change while maintaining a deep connection to his people and the land. Elena stepped closer to the clearing, careful not to intrude, and found a spot beneath a group of trees where she could observe without being noticed. She watched Tom for several minutes, taking in the ease of his movements, the quiet authority in the way he spoke, the subtle way he guided others without raising his voice or issuing commands. There was something magnetic about him, not because he demanded attention, but because he seemed to embody a sense of inner strength that made others naturally gravitate toward him. Elena's notebook sat in her bag, but she hesitated to take it out immediately. She wanted to experience this moment fully before trying to put it into words. As she observed, she began to notice small details. The way Tom's hands moved as he arranged ceremonial items, the way he spoke softly to the younger members of the group, giving instructions that were more like gentle suggestions than commands. His eyes were kind but sharp, and there was a quiet sense of humor that peeked out occasionally, a twinkle in the corner of his gaze when someone did something slightly off or amusing. Elena felt a strange mix of admiration and unease. She had studied leadership in textbooks, had written papers on authority and influence, but this was different. This was real, alive, and not confined to theory. It made her question everything she thought she knew about power. Eventually, Tom looked up, his gaze sweeping over the clearing as if sensing her presence. Elena froze for a moment, feeling the weight of his attention. She felt exposed, yet strangely safe. Instead of showing surprise or disapproval, Tom's expression softened into a small, knowing smile. He gestured subtly for her to approach. Elena hesitated, then took a deep breath and walked forward, feeling each step echo lightly on the forest floor.
"Good morning," Tom said, his voice calm and steady, carrying easily across the space between them.
"You came early." Yes," Elena replied, slightly nervous. "I wanted to observe." "And learn, if that's all right." Tom nodded, his eyes still warm but serious. Learning is good. Asking questions is better. What is it you wish to understand? Elena hesitated. She had rehearsed a dozen questions on the way here, but now that she stood in front of him, they seemed inadequate. She finally said, I want to understand power. How it is defined here. How leaders guide their people, not by force, but in a way that everyone respects. I think there's something different here than what I've read in books. Tom's expression shifted, slightly thoughtful. Power, he said slowly, is not what most people think. It is not shouting or commanding or taking control. It is listening. It is patience. It is knowing when to act and when to step back. Many people are afraid of it because they see it as something to be wielded over others. But true power is about connection. Elena's heart quickened. She had expected polite answers, but not this depth. She felt a mixture of excitement and challenge rise within her. But isn't leadership about making decisions, about asserting authority when needed? She asked, genuinely curious. Tom smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hinted at decades of observation and experience. Sometimes, he said, but decisions made without understanding, without respect, are empty. Authority without empathy is nothing but a shadow. Watch, and you may begin to see the difference. For the next several hours, Elena stayed under the trees, observing Tom and the community. She noticed the small ways he helped others, steadying the younger person who stumbled, quietly redirecting someone who was off task, praising achievements in ways that made people feel valued, not diminished. Every action, no matter how small, seemed deliberate and meaningful. It became clear to her that his power was not about being the loudest or most visible. It was about knowing the people, understanding the environment, and making choices that honored both. Elena took notes, careful to capture not just the actions but the subtleties, the tone of voice, the pauses, the gestures, the glances that carried meaning. She realized that she had been thinking of power too narrowly, as something to assert over others rather than something to nurture within a community. She felt a quiet excitement. This was the kind of learning she had come for, the kind that could not be found in books. As the morning faded into midday, Tom finally walked toward the edge of the clearing where she stood. You are paying attention, he said, not as an accusation, but as an observation. Good. But understanding is more than watching. It is feeling, experiencing. You must be willing to step into what you do not know and challenge yourself, not just others.
Elena nodded, feeling a spark of courage. I want to, she said. I want to understand more, even if it challenges me.
Tom's gaze softened, and he gestured to a spot under the largest tree in the clearing. Then come. Sit. Let us talk. Ask your questions. Speak honestly. That is how learning begins.
Elena felt her chest lift slightly.
She had come seeking knowledge, and now, under the shade of the trees, with sunlight flickering through the leaves and the scent of earth and smoke surrounding her, she realized that this encounter was about to change her understanding of everything she thought she knew about strength, leadership, and power. It was the start of a journey she had never anticipated, but one she was ready to take. And so, under the trees, the forest alive around them, Elena and Tom began a conversation that would unfold slowly, deliberately, and profoundly. A conversation that would challenge not just her ideas, but the way she saw the world and herself. Forever. The sunlight had moved higher in the sky, filtering through the leaves and painting the forest floor in patches of gold and green. Elena sat quietly under the large tree, the soft hum of the forest around her. Tom had settled nearby, cross-legged on the earth, and for a while there was only the sound of birds, the occasional rustle of small animals, and the faint crackle of embers from a fire that had long since died down. It was in this quiet that Elena felt a strange courage rising inside her, a curiosity that would not let her remain silent. She wanted to understand, not just observe. She wanted to challenge the ideas she had come here to study. Tom, she began, her voice slightly hesitant but steady, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday about power being connection and patience. I understand it in theory, but how does it work in real life? How do you balance guiding people while letting them have freedom? Tom looked at her, his dark eyes reflecting a mixture of amusement and interest. Ah, he said, slowly nodding. That is the question that troubles many who think themselves leaders. Many believe strength comes from control. But strength is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. It is a dance, not a battle. Elena felt a spark of determination. She had always admired people who were confident, who seemed to know exactly what to do. But here, she realized, there was a depth she had never understood. But isn't it easier to be strong by showing others that you are in charge? Doesn't it work in the world outside this forest? She asked, feeling a bit of defiance creep into her tone. Tom's lips curved into a small smile, not mocking, but patient. It might appear easier, he said, but it is hollow. People may follow you, yes, but do they trust you? Do they respect the choices you make, or are they merely afraid of you? True power is not in fear. It is in understanding, in guiding without forcing, in lifting others without diminishing yourself. Elena frowned slightly, shaking her head. She had read about leaders who demanded obedience, who used authority to get results quickly. And yes, it worked, she thought. But there was a cost. Resentment, distance, even rebellion. Could power really be something gentle? Could influence truly exist without pressure? Tom seemed to read her thoughts. "Let me show you," he said quietly. "Words can only carry you so far. You must see. You must feel. If you are willing, we will take a walk, and I will ask you to participate, not as an observer, but as one who learns through experience." Elena felt her pulse quicken. She had expected discussions, stories, perhaps even demonstrations of rituals, but not this. A test, a challenge that would push her beyond what she knew. "I'm ready," she said, though a flutter of nervousness ran through her chest. They walked slowly through the forest, the ground soft beneath their feet. Tom's pace was steady, almost meditative, and Elena struggled to keep up, not with the speed, but with the focus it demanded. Every sound seemed sharper, every smell more distinct. She noticed the way the wind shifted, the way leaves moved in patterns almost imperceptible to her at first. Tom paused occasionally, pointing out something small. A patch of moss shaped in a certain way, a bird that had nested in the branches above, a footprint in the mud, and explained that noticing details was part of understanding the world and, by extension, power, he said, is in seeing what others overlook. It is in understanding that the world is not only what it appears to be. "Do you understand?" Elena nodded, though she wasn't completely sure. There was so much to process, so much to see, and yet she felt that she was beginning to glimpse the truth of what he meant. She realized that she had been in a hurry all her life, rushing to conclusions, making decisions based on what seemed obvious. Here, in the quiet of the forest, everything required patience. Everything required observation. After a while they arrived at a small clearing where sunlight poured down in warm streams, illuminating the moss-covered stones scattered around. Tom stopped and turned to her. "Here," he said, "is where we begin the real lesson. I want you to try something. You will navigate this space blindfolded, relying only on your senses and your understanding of your surroundings. I will guide you only when necessary. Are you willing?" Elena felt a jolt of fear mixed with excitement. Blindfolded? Alone in a forest? Her mind raced with questions. What if she stumbled? What if she got lost? But deep down, she felt that this was exactly what she had come for. A challenge that would teach her more than observation ever could. "I will try," she said, her voice firm. Tom handed her a simple cloth, and Elena tied it over her eyes, feeling the world disappear into darkness. The sounds of the forest grew sharper, every whisper of wind, every rustle of leaves magnified. Her heartbeat quickened, and for a moment she felt unsteady. But then she remembered his words about patience and attention. She took a deep breath and began to move, guided by the faint sound of his voice and the subtle vibrations of the earth beneath her feet. Step by step, she navigated the clearing, sometimes faltering, sometimes catching herself at the last moment. Tom's voice was calm, never rushing her, never taking over. When she felt fear creeping in, he would ask a simple question. What do you notice? What can you feel? And each time she realized that the answers were all around her. The ground, the air, the slight tilt of a stone. They were all telling her a story. Slowly, Elena began to feel a sense of trust, not just in Tom, but in herself. She realized that power was not about control or certainty. It was about presence, attention, and understanding. The forest, once overwhelming, now felt like a partner in her learning, guiding her in subtle ways she could feel but not see. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, Tom guided her to a stone at the center of the clearing and helped her remove the blindfold. Light flooded her vision, and for a moment she was disoriented. But as her eyes adjusted, she saw the clearing in a new way. Every detail she had missed, the patterns of leaves, the arrangement of stones, the subtle shifts in sunlight, became clear. And in that moment, Elena understood a truth that words alone could never have conveyed. True power was in awareness, in connection, in the ability to move carefully, respectfully, and deliberately in harmony with the world around you. Tom watched her quietly, as if reading the thought she could not yet speak aloud. You see, he said gently, what many people call strength is only the surface. The deeper strength is knowing how to act with patience, how to guide without forcing, and how to understand before deciding. This is the way of power that lasts, that builds trust, that nurtures life rather than bends it to your will. Elena felt a wave of gratitude mixed with awe. She had come seeking knowledge, but what she received was far more profound. She realized that her previous ideas of leadership, based on textbooks, theories, and examples from the outside world, were limited. Here, in the quiet forest, with the guidance of someone who had lived a life of connection and observation, she began to glimpse a richer, more enduring understanding. They sat together for a while in silence, listening to the forest. Elena reflected on the challenge she had just faced, thinking about the fear, the hesitation, and ultimately the sense of accomplishment and understanding that had come from embracing the unknown. She felt changed, not in a dramatic or immediate way, but subtly, deeply. The way she thought about power, about leadership, and about herself was shifting, growing. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. I think I understand now, she said. Power isn't about being above others or controlling them. It's about connection, patience, and trust. It's about guiding without forcing. Tom nodded, a small, approving smile on his face. Yes, that is the beginning. There is much more to learn, but if you carry this understanding with you, you will find that the world behaves differently. People respond differently when they are met with respect and awareness, rather than force and demand. Elena felt a sense of calm determination. She knew that this was only the start of her journey, that the lessons would continue to unfold in subtle ways, in actions, in choices, in moments both large and small. But she also felt confident that she had taken the first step toward a deeper understanding of the world and herself. As the sun climbed higher, casting stronger light through the forest canopy, Elena and Tom began walking back toward the clearing where the others were preparing for the day's gathering. Every step felt lighter, every breath more intentional. She realized that the challenge she had faced had not been about proving herself. It had been about learning, observing, and connecting. And in that realization, she felt a new kind of power rising within her, one that was quiet, steady, and enduring. The forest seemed alive around them, every leaf, stone, and ray of sunlight echoing the lessons she had just learned. And as she walked, Elena knew that the encounter under the trees, the challenge, and the guidance she had received would stay with her forever, shaping the way she saw the world and the way she moved through it with care, awareness, and true strength. The forest seemed to hold its breath that morning. Sunlight poured in through the branches, creating patterns on the ground that shifted as the wind moved the leaves. Birds sang softly, and a distant creak added a gentle rhythm to the quiet. Elena walked beside Tom, her mind still buzzing from the lessons of the previous day. She felt a mixture of curiosity, excitement, and nervousness, knowing that today's experience would take her understanding of power even further. Tom led her deeper into the forest than she had gone before, past familiar paths and toward a small grove that felt almost hidden, as if it were meant only for those willing to look carefully. The air grew cooler here, and the scent of pine and damp earth was stronger. Elena noticed the silence more than ever, the kind of silence that was alive, almost tangible. It made her heart beat faster, but in a way that felt alive and energizing rather than frightening. "This is where the true lesson begins," Tom said, stopping at the edge of the grove. His voice was calm, steady, filled with the weight of experience. "Here, you will learn not just by watching, but by participating. Are you ready?" Elena nodded, trying to steady her breath. She had felt challenged before, yes, but this felt different. It was no longer just a test of her understanding. It was a test of her trust, her patience, and her ability to surrender control. Tom handed her a small bundle of cloth. "You will navigate this space blindfolded," he explained. "Your eyes will not guide you. Instead, you must rely on your other senses, your attention, and the guidance you feel from those around you. Remember, power is not about dominance. It is about connection. Feel your way carefully." Elena's pulse quickened. Her hand shook slightly as she tied the cloth over her eyes. Darkness replaced the world she had come to know, and at first, fear threatened to overtake her. She could not see the path, the trees, the stones that lay ahead. Every step was uncertain, but she remembered Tom's words from the day before. Patience, awareness, observation. She took a deep breath, trying to feel the ground beneath her feet, the air around her, the rhythm of the forest. "Take your first step," Tom said softly. "Trust what you sense." She lifted her foot carefully, feeling the soft soil, the small roots and stones pressing under her shoe. Step by step, she moved, slowly at first, then with increasing confidence. Every sound was amplified, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the faint movement of animals. She realized that she had been blind to so much before, that her eyes had limited her more than they had helped. Her other senses were waking up, and with them came a new kind of awareness. Tom walked beside her, his presence steady, but he did not touch her or lead her directly. Instead, he asked questions. "What do you feel under your feet? What can you hear above you? Where does the ground slope?" Each time, Elena focused intently, listening and feeling, learning to trust herself and the world around her. At one point, she stumbled over a tree root and froze, her heart racing. "I can't do this," she whispered to herself, panic rising.
"Stop," Tom said calmly. "Breathe."
Feel. What is the root teaching you? What can it tell you about the path? Elena closed her eyes behind the blindfold, imagining the shape of the root, the way her foot had landed, the texture of the earth around it. Slowly, she found her balance and continued. It was not easy. Her body ached, and her mind wanted to rush ahead. But she felt a strange exhilaration in moving carefully, deliberately, in harmony with her surroundings. After what felt like hours, but was only part of the morning, Tom guided her to a central stone in the grove. "Here," he said, "remove the blindfold." Light flooded her eyes, and for a moment she felt disoriented. But as her vision returned, she saw the grove with new clarity. Every leaf, every stone, every gentle slope of the land was distinct, vibrant, and alive. She realized that she had been blind in more ways than one, not just physically, but to the subtle lessons all around her. She had moved through the grove relying on awareness, patience, and trust, and in doing so had discovered something she could never have seen before. Tom watched her quietly. "Do you see now?" he asked. "Power is not in rushing ahead, in forcing your way, or in controlling the path. Power is in understanding, in feeling, in moving with intention. It is knowing the world around you and choosing how to respond, rather than reacting blindly."
Elena nodded, her mind reeling with understanding.
The lesson was clear, but it was more profound than anything she had expected. She thought of the leaders she had read about, who used fear or authority to get results quickly, and she realized that their influence was shallow. The strength Tom spoke of was enduring, subtle, and far more powerful than force. After a short rest, Tom suggested that Elena lead him through the grove now, using what she had learned. Her heart raced at the thought. Could she guide someone else when she had just been guided herself? But she also felt a quiet excitement. This was the ultimate test, to apply knowledge, not just absorb it. Taking a deep breath, she extended her hand lightly toward Tom, who followed her instructions without hesitation. Step by step, she moved, using the same patience, attention, and awareness she had practiced. She noticed small details she had missed before. The slight slope of a stone, the direction of the wind, the texture of moss underfoot. She gave instructions calmly, gently, guiding without pushing. And for the first time, she felt the subtle joy of leadership, the satisfaction of helping someone else move safely, confidently, and with understanding. By the time they reached the edge of the grove, Elena felt a profound shift within herself. She had faced fear, relied on senses she had not trusted, and learned the delicate balance between guidance and independence. She realized that true leadership required empathy, observation, and the ability to step back when necessary. She had begun to understand what Tom had meant when he said that power was connection, not dominance. They sat together on a fallen log, the morning sun warming their faces. Tom spoke softly. "You have learned more than I could teach in words alone. Experience teaches in a way that reading or observing never can. You have felt the lesson, not just heard it. This is the essence of power." Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had come to the forest seeking knowledge, but she had found something far more valuable, a transformation in the way she thought about leadership, influence, and her own potential. She understood now that power was not a tool to use over others, but a quality to cultivate within oneself, expressed through patience, awareness, and respect. As they walked back toward the clearing where the others were preparing for the day's activities, Elena noticed the forest differently. Every tree, every stone, every patch of sunlight seemed to carry meaning. She felt connected not just to the forest, but to the people she had observed, to the lessons embedded in their way of life, and to the deeper truths about strength and leadership that she had only begun to understand. Tom glanced at her, his expression calm and approving. "Remember," he said, "the greatest power is not what you hold over others, but what you awaken in them, what you see in them, and what you allow them to discover about themselves." Elena smiled quietly. She had felt that power within herself today. A quiet, steady force that did not demand, but guided, that did not dominate, but nurtured. She knew that this experience would stay with her forever, shaping her choices, her understanding, and the way she interacted with the world. By the time they returned to the clearing, the forest was alive with the sounds of the community. People moved with purpose, working together in harmony. Elena watched them, seeing not just individuals, but a network of connection, each action supporting another, each decision made with care. She realized that the lessons she had learned in the grove extended far beyond the forest. They applied to every relationship, every community, every moment where understanding and leadership were required. Sitting quietly under the shade of the trees, Elena reflected on the journey so far. She had arrived seeking knowledge, expecting to observe and take notes. Instead, she had been challenged, guided, and transformed. She had learned that power was subtle, enduring and rooted in awareness, patience, and empathy. And she had discovered a new confidence within herself, a confidence born not from dominance or authority, but from understanding, presence, and the quiet strength of mindful action. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm light over the forest, Elena felt a sense of peace and purpose. The grove, the challenge, and Tom's guidance had opened a new path for her, not just in understanding the Lakota way of life, but in understanding herself. She realized that leadership, true power, and meaningful connection were lessons she would carry with her for the rest of her life. And in that moment, under the trees, surrounded by the quiet strength of the forest, Elena felt ready for whatever came next. She knew that the journey was far from over, but she also knew that she had taken a significant step toward understanding the true meaning of power, a power that was not about control, but about connection, awareness, and the courage to guide with wisdom and empathy. The sun was beginning its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long, soft shadows across the forest clearing. The golden light filtered through the trees, bathing everything in a warm glow that made the air feel almost sacred. Elena sat quietly on a large stone, her notebook open but forgotten in her lap. The events of the morning, the blindfolded exercise, the careful navigation through the grove, the challenge of guiding Tom herself, still pulsed in her mind. Her body was tired, but her spirit felt lighter, alive in a way that surprised her. She realized that she had learned more in the forest than she ever could have in a classroom. Tom approached, his movements calm, deliberate, each step making no more noise than the falling leaves. He sat beside her without speaking immediately, giving her space to reflect. After a few moments, he spoke softly, his voice blending with the rustle of the trees. "You have experienced much today. You have faced uncertainty, fear, and hesitation. And yet you persisted. That is the mark of understanding, not the quickness of learning, but the willingness to move carefully, attentively, and with patience." Elena took a deep breath. "I think I understand what you mean," she said. "I see now that power isn't about forcing others or proving yourself. It's about patience, awareness, and connection. But I still have questions. How does this translate to life beyond the forest? How can one hold this kind of power in the world outside?" Tom's eyes softened, and he gestured for her to follow him. They walked slowly to the edge of the clearing, where the shadows of the trees stretched across the soft earth. In the distance, other members of the Lakota community were gathered, preparing for an evening ceremony. The fire pits glowed faintly, smoke curling into the sky, and the sounds of quiet conversation carried through the air. "This is where the lesson deepens," Tom said. "You can see theory in action, but to truly understand, you must also listen to the stories of those who have lived it. Come, let us sit with them." Elena hesitated for only a moment, then followed. She felt a strange mix of nerves and anticipation. She had observed the community before, but now she would hear from the elders themselves, people whose lives had been shaped by history, struggle, and survival. They were carriers of wisdom that went far beyond words in books or lessons in a classroom. The elders welcomed them with quiet smiles, nods of acknowledgement, and gestures of respect. There was no formality, no unnecessary ceremony, just presence, attention, and a deep sense of community. Elena noticed how everyone listened carefully when someone spoke, how each word seemed weighted with meaning, how each story connected to the next. It was as if the entire gathering was a living web of understanding and guidance. One elder, a woman with silver hair pulled into a braid and eyes that seemed to hold the memory of generations, began to speak. Her voice was soft but carried effortlessly. She told the story of the tribe's past, of times when survival depended not on force or control, but on cooperation, awareness, and careful observation of the land. She spoke of leaders who had earned respect not by asserting dominance but by nurturing trust, by listening, and by guiding without demanding. Elena listened, captivated. Each story painted a picture of strength that was quiet, patient, and enduring. She realized that what she had learned in the grove was not just a lesson for a forest, it was a reflection of centuries of wisdom, a principle that shaped every aspect of the community's life. Power was not the loudest voice or the strongest hand. It was the ability to foster understanding, to inspire trust, and to act with awareness. As the elder spoke, Elena noticed Tom watching her. His expression was calm, but she could see a subtle acknowledgement in his eyes. He had guided her to this moment, but he had let her reach it on her own, just as he had allowed her to navigate the grove and guide him. It was a lesson in trust, in allowing others to learn by experience, in recognizing that understanding cannot be forced, it must be discovered. After the story, another elder joined in, an older man whose hands were worn and marked by years of work and responsibility. He spoke of challenges the tribe had faced, of decisions made in times of crisis, and of the ways in which strength had been measured not by control, but by wisdom and compassion. Each anecdote reinforced the lesson Elena had already begun to internalize, that true power was rooted in connection, patience, and the courage to act with awareness and empathy. Elena felt a deep sense of reflection. She thought about her own life, the times when she had tried to assert authority or control, and how often it had led to misunderstanding or resistance. She realized that her previous ideas of strength had been limited, focused only on visible results, quick outcomes, or external recognition. Here she was learning a deeper truth, that influence, guidance, and leadership were most effective when they were gentle, observant, and rooted in trust and understanding. Tom leaned closer and spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret. "Do you see now? The lessons of the forest, the blindfolded exercise, guiding me through the grove. They were all preparation. Preparation for understanding life beyond these trees. Power is not something you take. It is something you cultivate, nurture, and use wisely." Elena nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She understood that what she had learned was not just practical, it was transformative. It changed the way she saw herself, the way she saw others, and the way she would approach challenges in the future. She felt a quiet strength rising within her, a sense of confidence that was steady, calm, and enduring, unlike anything she had experienced before. As the sun continued to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, the community gathered around the fire for a quiet ceremony. Flames flickered and crackled, sending sparks upward, and the warmth of the fire was comforting against the cool evening air. Songs were sung softly, stories were shared, and Elena felt a sense of belonging she had never expected. She was an observer, yes, but she also felt part of the rhythm of the gathering, connected to the people, the forest, and the lessons she had learned. Tom spoke again, his voice blending with the crackle of the fire. "True power," he said, "is not always visible. It is in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the patience you practice, in the awareness you carry. It is in understanding before acting, listening before speaking, and guiding without forcing. This is the power that lasts." Eleanor reflected silently. She thought about her own life, her work, her relationships, the moments when she had sought to control rather than understand. She realized that she had been learning this lesson her whole life without knowing it. The forest, the blindfold, the elders, Tom, they had all revealed the same truth in different ways. Power was not something to claim. It was something to embody, something to live through actions, presence, and understanding. The evening deepened, and stars began to appear above, shining through gaps in the forest canopy. The fire cast long shadows flickering against the trees, creating a sense of timelessness, as if the lessons of the past and the present were merging into one. Elena felt a quiet gratitude, a sense of peace and purpose that filled her from within. She knew that the experiences of the day would remain with her forever, shaping her decisions, her thoughts, and the way she interacted with the world. Tom placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, a gesture of reassurance and encouragement. "You have taken a great step today," he said. "Remember that these lessons are not finished. They will continue to unfold as you move through life. But you have begun to understand the essence of true power, the kind that is gentle, aware, and enduring." Elena nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. It was the warmth of understanding, of growth, of realization. She had come to the forest seeking knowledge, but she was leaving with something far more profound, a transformation of perspective, a deepening of empathy, and a sense of strength rooted not in dominance, but in connection and awareness. As the ceremony continued around them, Elena looked around at the faces of the community, faces lined with experience, marked by wisdom, yet open and kind. She felt a connection that transcended words, a recognition that the lessons she had learned were part of something much larger than herself, something enduring and vital. She realized that power, in its truest sense, was not about what she could take or command, but what she could cultivate, inspire, and understand. By the time the fire had burned low and the night settled fully around the forest, Elena felt a quiet certainty. She knew that she had experienced something rare, something that would shape her life forever. The forest, the grove, the elders, and Tom had revealed to her the deeper meaning of strength, influence, and leadership. She understood now that true power was patient, observant, empathetic, and deeply connected to those it touched. And as she lay beneath the stars later that night, the sounds of the forest soothing her to sleep, Elena felt a sense of peace and purpose, unlike anything she had known. She knew that the lessons she had learned would continue to grow within her, guiding her, shaping her, and reminding her that real power was not in control, but in awareness, connection, and understanding. The next morning the forest was alive with a soft golden light. The leaves shimmered as the sun rose higher, and the air carried a gentle freshness that seemed to awaken every sense. Elena stepped carefully along the familiar path, her boots crunching softly against the earth. Unlike the first day, she no longer felt nervous or unsure. She carried within her a quiet confidence, a sense of calm that came from understanding, not just seeing, but experiencing the deeper meaning of power. Tom walked beside her, his presence steady and reassuring as they made their way toward the clearing where the community gathered each morning. There was no hurry, no tension, only the rhythm of their steps and the subtle harmony of the forest around them. Elena realized that she had changed. Not dramatically, not in a way that others might immediately notice, but deeply. She could feel it in the way she moved, the way she breathed, and the way she paid attention to the world around her. As they approached the clearing, the sounds of the community filled the air. People were working together, preparing food, tending to small tasks, sharing quiet conversations. Elena noticed the ease with which they communicated, the way every movement seemed intentional, every action purposeful. She realized that what she had learned under the trees, in the grove, and during the evening ceremony was not separate from these moments. It was reflected here, in the way life moved in rhythm with respect, awareness, and connection. Tom paused and gestured toward a small circle of stones at the edge of the clearing. "Today," he said, "you will take what you have learned and see it in action, not through blindfolds or exercises, but in real moments among the people and the tasks of daily life."
Elena felt a thrill of anticipation.
She had learned much in theory and practice, but now she would see how it applied in a living community, with real interactions and challenges. She was ready. The first task came quickly. A young boy had accidentally dropped a bundle of firewood, scattering pieces across the ground. Several adults were about to rush to pick it up, but Elena stepped forward instead. She moved calmly, observing the situation. She noticed that the boy looked worried, afraid of being scolded. She crouched, speaking softly and kindly. "It's all right. Let's gather this together. Can you help me place these?" The boy's eyes brightened, and he nodded. Together they collected the wood, her hands guiding without taking over, her voice gentle but confident. Eleanor realized she was using the very lesson she had learned, the patience, awareness, and subtle leadership that came from connection rather than control. She felt a deep satisfaction, not from being in charge, but from helping someone else feel capable and supported. Next, she noticed an older woman struggling to carry a heavy basket of food. Elena hurried over, offering assistance, but she did not take the basket outright. Instead, she walked beside the woman, adjusting her pace to match hers, offering encouragement and guidance. "We'll take it slowly," she said. "Step by step, we can do this together." The woman smiled, and Elena felt the quiet strength of cooperation. It was a power that did not demand, but invited participation. A power that uplifted rather than imposed. Every small action reinforced what she had learned. True strength was in the connection, in awareness, in the ability to guide without forcing, to help without controlling. Throughout the morning, Elena found herself drawn into more moments like these. She helped children cross small streams safely, guided others through narrow paths, offered quiet advice to those who seemed unsure. Each time she noticed how her presence and careful attention made a difference, not through authority, but through empathy, observation, and patience. She realized that leadership was not a title or a position. It was a way of being, a quality expressed in small, deliberate acts of understanding. At midday, Tom led her back to the edge of the clearing. "Sit with me," he said, and they watched the community moving together like a living organism. "Do you see what you have accomplished?" he asked. Elena nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "but it feels different from what I expected. I thought power was about being noticed, being in control. But now I see it is about creating trust, awareness, and connection. It is quiet, steady, and lasting. Tom's smile was warm.
Exactly.
And remember, this is not only about what you do here. The lessons of the forest, the grove, and the community apply wherever you go. Leadership, influence, and power are not about taking, they are about understanding, guiding, and nurturing. You have learned not only to observe, but to embody these truths. Elena felt a deep gratitude. She thought about the blindfolded exercise, the careful navigation through the grove, the stories of the elders, and the quiet lessons of daily life in the community. Every experience had built upon the last, creating a foundation of understanding that felt unshakable. She realized that she would carry these lessons with her, applying them in her own life, in her work, and in her relationships. Later, as the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow across the forest, the community gathered for another small ceremony. Elena watched quietly, noticing the harmony, the respect, and the trust that underpinned every action. She understood now that this was the culmination of everything she had learned. Power expressed through awareness, patience, empathy, and connection. It was not loud or dramatic, but it was profound, enduring, and real. Tom placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You are ready," he said softly. "Go forward with these lessons, and you will find that the world responds differently." People respond not to authority or force, but to understanding, guidance, and the quiet strength that comes from presence.
Elena smiled, feeling a deep sense of purpose and clarity.
She knew that she had been transformed, not by a single moment, but by the accumulation of experiences, reflections, and challenges that had shown her the true meaning of power. She realized that the forest, the grove, the elders, and Tom himself had given her something far more valuable than knowledge. They had given her understanding, wisdom, and a new way of seeing the world. As night fell and stars appeared above, Elena walked to a small clearing where she could sit quietly alone for a few moments. The air was cool, filled with the soft sounds of the forest, settling into darkness. She thought about her life before arriving here, about the expectations she had carried, the ideas of leadership and power she had believed, and she realized that all of it had been only a part of the story. Here, in the quiet among the trees and the people who lived with awareness and respect, she had discovered a deeper, truer sense of strength. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds and smells of the forest wash over her. She felt the rhythm of life in the trees, in the wind, in the earth beneath her feet. She felt connected to the world in a way she had never imagined, and she knew that this connection was the foundation of the power she now understood. It was not something to take, but something to cultivate, nurture, and live. When she finally rose and returned to the clearing, Elena felt lighter, stronger, and more grounded than ever before. She walked with a quiet confidence, aware of the presence of others, aware of the forest, aware of herself. She knew that the lessons she had learned would guide her in every step she took from this day forward. Tom met her at the edge of the clearing, and they exchanged a knowing look. No words were needed. The journey had been completed, not as an ending, but as a beginning. Elena had faced challenges, embraced uncertainty, and learned through experience what true power meant. And now, as she prepared to return to her own life, she carried with her a wisdom that was enduring, subtle, and transformative. The forest seemed to hum around her, alive with the quiet strength that had shaped her journey. The trees, the stones, the wind, and the people had all contributed to a profound understanding. Elena realized that the world beyond this forest would be different for her now, not because it had changed, but because she had changed. She saw opportunities for connection, empathy, and leadership in every interaction, every challenge, and every decision. As she walked toward the path that would lead her back to the main road, Elena reflected on the entire experience. She thought about the blindfolded navigation through the grove, the guidance she had given Tom, the stories shared by the elders, and the daily acts of awareness and cooperation she had witnessed. Each moment had reinforced the same truth: power is not forceful or loud. It is quiet, steady, and rooted in understanding, connection, and patience. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and peace. She knew that the lessons she had learned were not temporary or superficial. They were now part of her. She carried within her a new perspective, one that would shape her choices, her actions, and her relationships for the rest of her life. And as she emerged from the forest, stepping back into the world she had left behind, Elena felt ready to face challenges with awareness, to lead with empathy, to connect with others in meaningful ways, and to embody the true meaning of power she had discovered under the trees, in the grove, and among the people who had shared their wisdom so generously. The journey had ended, but the lessons would continue to unfold in every moment. And Elena knew that she would never forget the quiet strength, the patient awareness, and the enduring connection that had shown her the real meaning of power.